I feel like the kind of idiot they make documentaries about. The kind of man whose story gets told as a warning to others. 64 years old, retired factory manager, spent 4 decades building a career on process and control, and I let a 31-year-old woman turn my house into the headquarters of an illegal lending operation that destroyed everything I'd worked for. I didn't just lose money. I became an accomplice to crimes I didn't even know were happening under my own roof. That's what haunts me most, not the £425,000, not even the betrayal. It's knowing that for 18 months, people were being threatened, intimidated, and financially ruined in the house I paid for, and I was too blind, too arrogant, too convinced of my own judgment to see what was right in front of me. But you have to understand something before I tell you this. I wasn't some lonely pensioner looking for a young bride. I wasn't desperate. I had a plan, a good plan, and plans had always worked for me. I grew up in Wolverhampton in a council flat where my dad worked at a steel mill and my mum cleaned offices at night. I watched them struggle for every pound. I watched my dad's hands get arthritis from the cold in that factory. I promised myself I'd do better, and I did. I started as a floor supervisor at a textile factory when I was 23. By 30, I was operations manager. By 45, I was running the entire facility. When the company restructured in 2019, they offered me early retirement with a package that came to just over £400,000 after tax, plus I had my own savings. Total liquid assets, £425,000. Most men my age would have bought a narrowboat or taken up golf. I'd been to Thailand twice on holiday. I liked it, the weather, the food, the cost of living. I wasn't looking for adventure. I was looking for efficiency. My retirement calculations showed I could live comfortably in Thailand on £1,500 a month. In the UK, that same lifestyle would cost £3,000. It was simple mathematics. I arrived in Bangkok in January 2020, right before the world shut down. I got lucky with timing, actually. I was already in Thailand when the pandemic hit, so I just extended my visa and rode it out. Rented a small condo in On Nut, kept to myself, learned the visa system, figured out the banking. I wasn't interested in the bar scene. I wasn't interested in the nightlife. I was there to build a sustainable retirement, not to play tourist. Then I met Wanita. This was October 2021. I decided to look at property in Pattaya because the market had crashed during COVID and there were bargains everywhere. I'm not a fool. I knew the reputation Pattaya had. But I also knew that underneath all the tourist nonsense, there were actual Thai families living actual Thai lives. I wanted to find that Thailand, the real one. Wanita was working at a property agency on 2nd Road. She'd been a bar owner before the pandemic, but that business had collapsed when the tourists disappeared. She was 31, spoke excellent English, and she was the first person in Thailand who didn't treat me like a walking ATM. When I asked about property prices, she told me honestly that I could get better deals if I waited 6 months. When I asked about the best areas, she steered me away from the farang complexes and showed me Thai neighborhoods where I'd pay half the price. I appreciated that. I appreciated her directness. She was beautiful, obviously. I'm not going to pretend that didn't matter. But it wasn't just that. She was smart. She understood business. When I told her about my factory management background, she asked detailed questions about supply chain logistics, staff retention, quality control. She'd run her bar like a business, not like a party. She kept spreadsheets. She tracked inventory waste. She understood profit margins. We started seeing each other, properly dating, not just meeting at the property office. She introduced me to her family in November. Her mother lived in a small house near the Pattaya market. Her brother worked construction. Her sister had 2 kids and a husband who drove a Song Thieu. They were poor, but they were working poor, dignified poor. Her mother cooked for me. Real Thai food, not tourist food. I remember the sound of her chopping vegetables on a wooden board while Wanita translated our conversation. Her mother wanted to know if I was divorced, if I had children, if I was a good man. I answered honestly, divorced, yes, 20 years ago, no children. And I believed I was a good man, a fair man, a man who kept his word. Her mother seemed satisfied with that. By January 2022, I'd bought a house. Not a condo, a house. 3 bedrooms, small garden, quiet soy, off Siam Country Club Road. It cost me 6.2 million baht, which at the exchange rate then was about 140,000 pounds. I know what you're thinking. Yes, it was in Wanita's name, but you have to understand, I'd done my research. I'd spoken to a lawyer. I had a 30-year lease agreement that gave me protected occupancy rights. I had a usufruct that meant I controlled the property even though I didn't own it. It was all legal, all documented. People think men like me are stupid for putting property in a Thai woman's name, but those people don't understand Thai property law. Foreigners can't own land. That's just the rule. You work within the system or you don't invest at all. And I'd worked within systems my entire life. Rules didn't bother me. I followed rules. That's why I succeeded when other people failed. Wanita moved in with me in February. We got married in March. Small ceremony at the Amphu, just her family and a couple of expat friends I'd made at a coffee shop in Jomtien. I paid Sin Sod 400,000 baht, which seemed reasonable given her age and education level. Her family was happy. I was happy. I finally felt like I was building something real. The house was perfect. I set up a small office in the spare bedroom where I could manage my UK finances and watch the Premier League on a proper screen. Wanida took over the other spare room as her workspace. She said she wanted to start a small business, maybe selling clothes online or doing property rental management. I thought that was sensible. She had good business instincts. Why shouldn't she use them? I gave her 200,000 baht to get started. Seed capital. That's what I called it. She was grateful. She kissed me and said I was the best husband, the kindest farang, that I understood Thai culture better than men who'd lived here for 20 years. I believed her because I wanted it to be true. The first few months were good. Really good. We'd have breakfast together on the terrace. She'd make Thai coffee the way I liked it, strong and sweet. We'd talk about what to plant in the garden. She wanted to grow chilies and lemongrass. I wanted tomatoes and basil. We compromised. That's what you do in a marriage, right? You compromise. Her family came to visit every few weeks. Her mother always brought food. Her brother would help with repairs around the house. Her sister's kids would play in the garden while Wanita and I sat with the adults and drank Leo beer and ate som tam. It felt like family. I hadn't had family in a long time. Then the visitors started. At first, it was just 1 or 2 people a week. Wanita said they were friends from her bar days. They'd come over, sit in her office room, talk for 30 or 40 minutes, then leave. I didn't think much of it. She was social. Thai people are social. They visit each other constantly. It's part of the culture. But then it became daily. Sometimes twice daily, and these weren't social visits. The people who came looked stressed, worried. They'd arrive on motorbikes, park in our driveway, go straight to Wanita's room, and leave 20 minutes later looking either relieved or more stressed than when they arrived. When I asked Wanita about it, she said she was helping people with paperwork, government forms, bank applications, that sort of thing. A lot of Thai people struggle with bureaucracy, she explained, especially older people or people from Isan who don't speak Central Thai very well. She was just helping them navigate the system. That made sense to me. I'd spent my career helping people navigate systems. It seemed like a useful service. She asked me for another 100,000 baht in June. She said she needed to upgrade her computer and buy a printer because she was processing so many documents. I gave it to her. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife. We were building a life together. The visitors increased. Sometimes there were 5 or 6 people a day. I started recognizing faces. A woman in her 50s who came every Tuesday. A man with a limp who came every Thursday. A young couple who came together every Sunday morning. I noticed something else too. The visitors always brought envelopes. Not big envelopes, just the small white ones you'd use for a greeting card. They'd hand them to Wanita when they arrived or when they left. I assumed these were payments for her document services. It seemed reasonable. People should pay for professional help. But you have to understand, I still thought I was in control. I thought I understood what was happening in my own house. That's the thing about being a control freak. You think your need for control actually gives you control. It doesn't. It just makes you better at lying to yourself. My friend Graham started asking questions in August. Graham was a retired copper from Manchester, been in Thailand for 12 years, married to a Thai woman from Udon Thani. We'd met at a pub quiz in Jomtien and stayed in touch. He'd come over for a beer every few weeks, and he'd noticed the constant traffic through our house. "Mate," he said one afternoon, while we were sitting in my garden watching 3 people come and go within an hour. "What exactly is your missus doing in there?" "Document services," I said, "helping people with government paperwork." Graham looked at me the way you look at someone who's about to walk into a glass door. "Document services don't require daily in-person meetings, Malcolm. You know that, right? You can do most of that stuff online now." I got defensive. Thai people prefer face-to-face. It's cultural. "Right," Graham said. He didn't push it further, but I could see he was unconvinced. I was annoyed at him for questioning it, for not understanding that my situation was different, that my wife was different. The phone calls started getting strange around the same time. Wanita's phone rang constantly. She'd answer in rapid Thai, her voice sometimes sharp, sometimes soothing. She'd step outside for these calls, walk down the soi, speak for 5 or 10 minutes, then come back. When I asked who kept calling, she said it was her family. Her brother needed money for medical bills. Her sister's husband lost his job. Her mother's roof needed repairs. I gave her 50,000 baht for her brother's medical bills in September, another 30,000 for her sister's husband in October, another 40,000 for her mother's roof in November. Every time I transferred money to her account, she'd be affectionate and grateful for a few days. Then the distance would return. She'd spend more time in her office room. She'd take more calls outside. She'd tell me she was stressed about her family's problems and could I please just give her space to deal with it. I gave her space because I trusted her, because I believed that in a marriage, you support your partner through difficult times. The ceiling fan in our bedroom made a clicking noise. I kept meaning to fix it. Every night I'd lie there listening to it click, 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 and I'd think about how I needed to get a ladder and tighten the screws. But I never did. I was always too busy or too tired or too focused on something else. Funny what you remember when everything falls apart. That clicking fan, the sound of it haunts me now. December 2022. That's when I should have known something was seriously wrong. A man came to the house at 9 in the evening. He was angry. I could hear him shouting in Thai from the living room while Wanita tried to calm him down in her office. The argument lasted 15 minutes. I heard something slam, then he left, gunning his motorbike engine as he sped off. I went to Wanita's room. She was sitting at her desk, crying. "What was that about?" I asked. "He's crazy," she said. "I helped him with a land document and he thinks I made a mistake. But I didn't. He just doesn't understand the process." I believed her because the alternative was too complicated to consider. The alternative meant asking questions I didn't want to ask. She asked for 80,000 baht the next day. She said she needed to fix the mistake with the land document, needed to pay an official at the land office to expedite a correction. I gave it to her. Not immediately, though. I hesitated, and she noticed me hesitating. "You don't trust me," she said. Not angry. Sad. Disappointed. "Of course I trust you," I said. And I transferred the money. That's how they get you. They make you prove your trust by giving money. And once you've given it, you can't admit it was a mistake because that would mean admitting you're a fool. So you give more and more. And each time it gets easier because you've already invested so much that walking away feels like a bigger loss than staying. January 2023. I sat down with a calculator and my bank statements. I'd given Wanita 400,000 baht over the previous 7 months. That was roughly 9,500 pounds. I'd spent 6.2 million baht on the house, another 400,000 on sin sod, Another 200,000 for her initial business setup. Total investment in my Thai life, 7.2 million baht, about 172,000 pounds. I still had 253,000 pounds in my UK accounts. I was fine. Everything was fine. I just needed to be more careful about the handouts. That's what I told myself. The visitors kept coming. More of them now. The young couple who used to come on Sundays started coming 3 times a week. The woman with the limp came twice a week. New faces appeared. A man with a gold chain. A woman with designer sunglasses. These people didn't look like they needed help with government paperwork. They looked like they had money. I started staying in my office more, door closed, headphones on. If I didn't see the visitors, I didn't have to think about what they were doing there. Wanida became cold. She stopped cooking breakfast. She stayed in her office until late at night. When I asked if everything was okay, she said she was stressed about business. Her family needed more help. Things were difficult. I gave her another 60,000 baht in February, then 40,000 inches March, then 100,000 inches April because her brother supposedly needed emergency surgery. Graham came over in April and didn't mince words this time. Malcolm, I'm going to say this once because you're my mate. Your wife is running something dodgy out of this house. I don't know what it is, but it's dodgy. You need to find out what's going on. I told him he was wrong. I told him he was being paranoid. I told him that not all Thai women were scammers and maybe his experience wasn't universal. He left. We didn't speak for 3 months after that. I was wearing the blue shirt Wanita bought me for my birthday when the police came. It was a Tuesday morning in July. I remember because I'd just finished watching Match of the Day highlights from the weekend and I was thinking about making a sandwich. 2 officers in brown uniforms. They asked for Wanita. She came out of her office looking pale. They spoke in Thai for about 5 minutes. I couldn't understand most of it, but I heard bank, and I heard police report, and I heard numbers being discussed. Then one of the officers turned to me and switched to English. You are the owner of this house? I'm the leaseholder. My wife owns it. You know what business your wife operates here? She helps people with documents, government paperwork. The 2 officers looked at each other. One of them actually laughed. Not a cruel laugh. More like he was genuinely surprised by my answer. Sir, your wife runs a legal lending business. Loan shark. Very high interest. We have report from Capricorn Bank about fraud. Your wife using this house as office for money lending operation. I couldn't breathe. The fan in the living room was on, and I could hear it humming, and I felt like the sound was getting louder and louder until it was the only thing I could hear. That's not possible, I said. She helps people with paperwork. The officer pulled out his phone and showed me photos. Screenshots of line conversations. Wanita's name. Messages about interest rates. You pay 5,000 baht interest this week, or we come to your house. You owe 80,000 baht now because you missed 2 payments. Your motorbike belongs to us until you pay. She has been doing this for 18 months, the officer said. Many people, maybe 50 people, maybe more. We have complaints. Someone filed report with bank about fraud. Bank contacted us. Wanida started crying. I did it for us, for our future. You don't give me enough money to live. I need to make money for my family. I just stared at her. This woman I'd married. This woman I'd given everything to. This woman who'd been running a loan shark operation from the spare bedroom of the house I paid for. The officers took her to the station for questioning. They told me I might be questioned too. They told me I needed to get a lawyer. I sat in my living room for I don't know how long. Could have been an hour. Could have been 4 hours. The fan kept humming. That clicking in the bedroom started up like it knew this was the right moment to remind me of every time I'd ignored something wrong. I opened her office door. I'd never actually gone in there before. I'd respected her privacy. That's what good husbands do, right? They respect boundaries. There was a ledger book on the desk. Handwritten entries, names, amounts, interest rates. Some people owed 200,000 baht. Some owed 50,000. Some entries had red marks next to them. I found out later those were the ones who couldn't pay. There was a safe under the desk. It was open. Inside were stacks of 1,000 baht notes. I didn't count them, but it looked like several 100,000 baht, maybe more. There were also documents, motorcycle registration books, land deeds, ID cards, collateral. She'd taken collateral from people who couldn't pay. I found a notebook with dates and names, visitor logs. I recognized some of the names. The woman who came every Tuesday had borrowed 120,000 baht in December 2021. She paid back 180,000 baht over 18 months and still owed 60,000. The interest rate was 3% per week. 3% per week. I calculated it. That's 156% annual interest. Loan sharks in the UK charge maybe 50%. This was 3 times that. And she'd been doing it from my house. The house I'd paid for. The house where I lived. Where I slept. Where I ate breakfast. I was an accomplice. Legally, morally, I was an accomplice. Wanita came back from the police station that evening. They hadn't arrested her, not yet. They were investigating. She'd need to go back for more questioning. How could you do this? I asked. You don't understand, she said. In Thailand, this is normal. Everyone does this. It's how Thai people get money when bank won't help them. It's illegal, only if they report you. Someone reported you. One person. Only one person. I help 50 people and only one complains. I felt like I was talking to a stranger. This wasn't the woman who'd cooked me breakfast, who'd laughed at my terrible Thai pronunciation, who'd held my hand when we walked through the night market. Or maybe it was. Maybe I'd just never actually known who she was. I moved out 3 days later, rented a small studio in Jomtien, left everything in the house except my clothes and my laptop. The house wasn't mine anyway. It had never been mine. I called Graham, apologized. He came over with beer and listened while I told him everything. How much did you lose? He asked. I'd done the calculation. The house, 6.2 million baht. Sin sod, 400,000. Her business seed capital, 200,000. All the family emergency money, another 700,000 baht total over 18 months. Money I'd transferred to her personal account that had probably gone straight into the lending operation. About 7.5 million baht, I said. Roughly 175,000 pounds. But that wasn't the real loss. The real loss was knowing that I'd enabled it. I'd paid for the house where she'd threatened people, where she'd taken their motorcycles, their land, their dignity. I'd made it possible. The bank fraud case moved slowly. These things always do in Thailand. Wanita got a good lawyer, some guy her brother knew. The lawyer argued that she'd been operating a legitimate lending business and that the person who filed the complaint had agreed to the terms. I got questioned once by the police. They wanted to know if I knew about the business. I told them the truth. I didn't. They seemed to believe me, or they didn't care enough to pursue it. Stupid farang married to Thai loan shark isn't exactly headline news in Pattaya. I found out later that she'd used my UK address on some of the loan documents. She'd told borrowers that her husband was a wealthy English businessman who backed her lending operation. She'd used me as credibility. Some of those borrowers probably thought I was the one threatening them. I consulted with a lawyer about the house. He confirmed what I already knew. The 30-year lease and the usufruct weren't worth the paper they were printed on. If Wanita wanted me gone, I was gone. Thai courts almost always side with the Thai party in property disputes, especially when the foreigner admits he didn't know what was happening in the property. I could sue her for fraud, the lawyer said. It would take 5 years and cost me whatever money I had left, and I'd probably lose anyway. So I didn't. I left Thailand in September 2023, flew back to Birmingham. My sister let me stay in her spare room while I figured things out. I'm 64 years old and I'm living in my sister's house like I'm 20 years old again. I've got 240,000 pounds left. The money that was still in UK accounts, that she couldn't touch. It's enough to live on if I'm careful. But I'm not retiring to Thailand. I'm not retiring anywhere. I'm working part-time at a building supplies warehouse in Solihull. I need something to do. I need structure. I think about those people sometimes. The ones who borrowed money from her, I wonder if they got their motorcycles back, if they managed to pay off their debts. I wonder if they know that the house where they were threatened belonged to an Englishman who had no idea what was happening. I wonder if they blame me. I blame me. People ask me what I learned from all this, what wisdom I can share. Here's what I know now that I didn't know then. Control is an illusion. You think because you've managed systems and processes and employees for 40 years, you can manage a relationship the same way. You can't. People aren't systems. You can't create a policy manual for trust. I also know that when someone tells you Thai culture is different, they're usually just telling you to ignore your common sense. Thai people aren't different from British people when it comes to basic human decency and honesty. Good people are good, bad people are bad. Culture doesn't change that. I used culture as an excuse to ignore what was right in front of me. And I know that if you put a house in someone else's name, it's not your house. I don't care what the lawyer says. I don't care what the lease agreement says. If your name isn't on the deed, it's not yours, and you can't control what happens inside a house that isn't yours. The rules aren't different in Thailand. I just wanted to believe they were because it meant I could be different too. I could be the man who figured it out, the man who succeeded where others failed. But I wasn't different. I was exactly the same as every other man who lost everything because he thought love and logic could coexist. They can't. Not when money is involved. Not when you're 64 and she's 31 and you're in a country where you don't speak the language and you don't understand the systems no matter how much you think you do. I lost 175,000 pounds. But that's not what keeps me up at night. What keeps me up is knowing that somewhere in Pattaya, there's a house I paid for where terrible things happened to people who just needed money. And I let it happen because I was too proud to admit I'd made a mistake. If you're reading this and you're thinking about buying property in Thailand with a Thai partner, stop. If you're reading this and you're already in that situation, get out. It doesn't matter how much you've invested. It doesn't matter how different you think your situation is. You're not different. Your situation isn't different. The ending is always the same. I know because I lived it. And I'm still paying for it.